Okay, great. Well, it's 6 o'clock. On the proposed rate increase with the CPS Energy team. And so we're in the midst of a global pandemic still, and we've had several changes in the positivity rate. Unfortunately, keeps rising. So we had to pivot and change our plans. We were hoping to have this in person, but out of an abundance of caution, we were able to do this with CPS Energy online. So I want to thank Rudy Garza, our interim president and CEO of CPS Energy, who is here online, and his team for quickly being able to shift the gears as we all just got back from the holiday break. So literally running around trying to figure everything out over the past 2 years. And I think that it's definitely felt in our community even more with some of the things that have most recently happened. One of those things was last year's Winter Storm Uri. And so we lost hundreds of lives, and of course, thousands of people went without power, without water as well for days. And so that reality has not escaped me. And I want to make sure that as we approach the 1 year anniversary of that tragic event, that we will not forget those hard learned lessons. And so I'm sensitive to the fact that there have been many changes still at CPS Energy over the last year. I do want to thank Peter Onofre, who's my appointee to the RAC, the Rate Advisory Committee for District 4. And so thank you, Elder Onofre, for being there for our community. Having served also as a member, the mayor appointed me on the Committee for Emergency Preparedness. And so I've learned a great deal about how we can improve our communication efforts with one another. And I hope that we can continue to make progress and track the work that was done during that committee. And so one of the most important critical components continues to be our engagement with community, right? And so I can't stress enough how we will continue to consistently reach out, inform, and engage our residents. And so last night you might have received a phone call from our office, and so it went out to about 5,000 of our closest friends and neighbors, and making sure that they had access to call in to a number to listen to this town hall today. Because for the district that I represent, there's many residents who are affected by the digital divide as well. So they don't have reliable internet access. They can't use it from the comfort of their home. So I want to make sure that they also receive the information. And so it's something I'm very mindful about. Word of mouth is important during these type of events. And it's important to also share with our residents the information that we have. But beyond that, if you're listening today and you have a neighbor who was not able to participate today, please share with them the information, share with them our phone number, which we will give in a little bit, the phone number to CPS Energy as well for questions. But I'm grateful to those of you who are joining us today, and thank you for making time to be a part of this very important discussion. Many of our residents are trying to stay safe right now, or they might be caring for a loved one who's ill, or trying to figure out if it's safe for their children to return to school. And I understand that everyone has multiple things going on right now, and not everybody might be able to partake in tonight's event. But I do encourage you again to please reach out to our office. Let us know whatever questions you have. If you need any information, you can contact us by phone, by social media, any way of communication. And so I'll give this out again at the end in just a little bit. But today, the proposed rate increase that CPS Energy is proposing is a 3.85%. It is expected to generate $73 million in revenue. And so Rudy and the CPS team, Cory included, will go over in detail how those additional dollars are proposed to be spent. But the estimated impact for each household is an increase of about $5 to $6 per month. And for some people, it might not be a lot, but for some people, it's an astronomical figure. And we want to make sure that we have the input of those residents who maybe live paycheck to paycheck, single parent households, elderly residents who are living on fixed incomes, and others who are just trying to make ends meet. We know that as the consumer goods continue to increase in price, we need to be very, very careful as to what we do that might affect every single person. So I remind you not to consider your own personal budget, but also the household budgets of those who might be impacted differently. we also have to think of ourselves as a part of a city, a collective city that needs investment in infrastructure. So I hope this discussion is both informative and engaging for you all, and I urge you all to ask or share your opinions about how the proposed increase will affect you. I'm going to turn it over to Rudy Garza here in just a little bit. And again, Cory Kuchinsky, Chief Financial Officer with CPS Energy, is also on the line. Thank you for joining us, Cory. He will be running the presentation. But the entire CPS Energy team that's also on today's discussion, I want the residents to know that they can share their information, they can share their concerns, their opinions with us and with them as well. For the City Council District 4 office, our email address is council.district4@sanantonio.gov. Our phone number at the field office is 210-207-0880, or we can be reached by Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Dr. Adriana D4. And then before I forget, please, I'd love to invite you all, if you do need help or know someone who needs help with utility assistance, we will be having a utility assistance fair tomorrow from 9:30 to 12:30. Saturday from 9:30 to 12:30 at Palo Alto College. And so that's January the 8th, Saturday, 9:30 to 12:30 at Palo Alto College. CPS Energy has been helping us promote this, has been putting it together. So thank you, CPS, for wanting to help our community. If you need help filling out a utility assistance application or learning more about any of the discount programs that CPS Energy offers, that is the opportunity for you to stop by to see if you're eligible, and we will have information available in English and in Spanish. But thank you for joining us this evening. We're eager to hear your feedback. And then we will also have a questionnaire that we encourage you to submit and fill out. We want to hear from you in our office. So with that said, Rudy, it's all yours. Thank you so much for making the time for being here.
Well, Dr. Rocha Garcia, thank you very much for inviting us to participate in your town hall. You have been an absolute pleasure to work with during your time on council. District 4 is very lucky to have such an engaged and pleasant District 4 Councilwoman. So I just want to take the time to just thank you for the way you go about doing your business. You're always a pleasure. Dr. Rocha and I are UT Austin alumni together. Hook 'em horns, and so obviously her and I, have a very deep connection. And I just want to thank you for your leadership, ma'am. And I also want to thank Peter representing District 4. He's everywhere I am, so I know he's moving around and engaging with the community in a great way. And so, Peter, thank you also for joining us. I would expect nothing less of you than to be on air and ready to go. Let me start off by saying that I really appreciate and I just value our customers so much. Dr. Rocha Garcia's constituents are our customers. We're a community-owned asset. CPS Energy is your hometown utility. And so through the process of, can you hear me okay, Adriana? I
can hear you, but I just saw a note that says that they can't hear Rudy. Kendall Jones is saying he can hear. And can everybody else hear Rudy?
Cory, can you hear me okay? Okay.
I can hear it loud and clear.
Okay, very good. I will try to speak up as best I can. All right, I'm going to move my phone closer to me. Is that a little better? Okay. So we have been hugely thoughtful in how we've tried our best to move this request forward to the city council. It really, everybody, I want to make clear, this isn't a conversation that just started, in August. It's not like, we woke up one day and said, it's time for a rate increase. Let's go talk to the city council. It's been 8 years since the last rate increase. And, just like everybody else's cost of living has gone up, our cost of doing business has increased drastically. The community is growing in every direction. We have seen events like Winter Storm Uri that have caused us, to really look at the resiliency of our system and really amp up the investments that we've already were making, but we've had to make more of them to focus on the fact that we know we've got to do a better job when events like like the Winter Storm Uri happen. And so, we have been looking at our financials over the last 3 years, really, and then the pandemic hit, and it was difficult to begin a process in the midst of so much uncertainty in the community, the economy shutting down, everybody going home. During that time, we stopped disconnecting customers, obviously, which is absolutely the right thing to do. We have seen an impact of, over $100 million in past due balances that we continue to work with our customers on. So the challenges for not just our community, but for our business in particular, have been drastic, especially over the last 2 years, and even compounded over the last 10 months. And so when we began really in earnest talking about the potential need for a rate increase in August, September timeframe, we started at a much higher number than where we are now. And, the way our process goes, we enter into a dialogue with our city owner and later the city of San Antonio, city staff, and defining the specifics of what we know we're going to have to make investments in. The city looks at our budget, they look at our capital program and how we intend to invest in our system, and we spend a lot of time aligning on what an appropriate, reasonable request looks like. And so we find ourselves at a request of 3.85% of a base rate increase. As Dr. Rocha Garcia mentioned, that raises about $73 million. And Cory will talk in specifics of how we intend to spend that. Every dollar will go towards our systems that are intended to serve you, to make sure we're providing the service that you expect out of CPS Energy. We know we're accountable to the community, and so we don't make this ask lightly. We're also asking for a mechanism to be created called a regulatory asset that will allow us to pay the costs, some of the costs associated with our Winter Storm Uri fuel expense in the amount of $418 million. That will be another $1.26 bill impact on the average residential bill. Together, the base rate increase and the fuel costs will result in around $5.10 to our average residential customers. Some who use less will pay a little less. Some who use more, our businesses as well, will pay a little more. But on average, we've got to deal with that fuel expense so customers don't see a rate shock and the city budget isn't impacted. That has the potential to impact the city negatively. But the $73 million really is a belts and suspenders approach to really making the investments we need to ensure that we're serving our community in the manner in which you expect us to. We love our customers. We come to work every day with the focus on giving you the best service. After February, we've learned a lot, and I know there's some questions we'll get to talking about the things that we've done to ensure that this winter season is much better than winter season was. I promise you, those of you who are on the call tonight, we are in a better position this year to deal with cold weather than we've ever been in our history. And I'm proud of the work that we've done in collaboration with the city CEP committee to get in a better place and really focus on the things that we needed to do to prepare for this winter season. So, Dr. Garcia, I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to turn it over to Cory Kuchinsky. Cory will walk us through the presentation, and then we will answer as many questions as we possibly can. So thank you for having us tonight.
Great. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Councilwoman, for inviting us, and thank you to everyone listening. So I'll get going. I have a handful of slides. I'll go through them quickly, and then we'll leave some time, obviously, for questions at the end. I'll hit on a few things here, and I'll just jump into it real quick. As Rudy alluded to, we can't go anywhere without having a conversation about the winter storm and what we're doing going forward. So there's a lot of work that we are doing. So this slide really here highlights a handful of things that we're doing. We continue to fight for our customers in terms of the fuel costs that we were charged. I'll talk more about this later on. We are disputing over half of the bill that we had been charged, and I'll get into more of that in a bit. And the other two items in terms of improving grid management and hardening critical infrastructure, There's a lot that we have done. Just to rattle off a few things, we have done enhanced weatherization to our power plants. We've got those improvements validated by third parties. We've increased our natural gas storage ability for this winter to be ready. We've moved our scheduled maintenance that you would normally do in the winter season. We've moved that ahead so that they're all completed. So when we get into the cold months right now through February, all of our plants will be online and ready to go. So those are big changes we've done from a plant perspective, and there are additional investments we're going to make going forward from a long-term perspective. And on top of that, there's going to be long-term, we believe, rules and regulations that mandate some level of investment, and I'll speak more to that in a bit. From an outage perspective, outage management perspective, we've done a lot of work on our load share capabilities, basically, how we rotate customers being out in the event that that occurs. And so we've increased the number of circuits available to do that by about a third, which is significant. And that's really going to allow us to spread the outages around more customers, but in a much more moderate and tolerable fashion that folks would anticipate, as normal. We've also done a whole lot of collaborating, as you can tell by the bottom three icons, with SAWS, with the City of San Antonio, and broadly just improving communications with our customers at large. So, working with SAWS, we've done a lot of conversations in terms of what their critical pumping stations are, ensuring that we, focus on those in the event that we are forced by the state to reduce load, so that we don't have the issue with water that we had this winter as well. We've continued to work with the city and other, local agencies. So in the event there is, another winter storm, we'll all be in touch and have a coordinated communication out through the community. And broadly, we've worked on our actual communications to help send electronic messages, text messages, emails, real time, so that folks have a better understanding of, what may be coming and what to expect going forward. So a lot of changes that have been put into place this summer, low-hanging fruit and investments that we've spent, and additional investment we anticipate making. So going forward, Rudy said it's been about 8 years since our last rate request, and that's true, and a lot's changed. And, as Rudy alluded to, we are doing our business, and we are serving our customers at today's cost for serving, the various needs. But we're only recovering at, yesterday's rates, the rates we established 8 years ago. So there is a big discrepancy. One of the big drivers that's allowed us to go 8 years without actually raising our rates is how we've pulled a lot of cost out of our cost structure. We've pulled out over $900 million from our cost structure over the last decade. A lot of that is operational savings. A lot of it is savings through refinancing our debt, because we have really good credit rating. We've been able to get low interest rates over the years. And so that's really been helpful and enabled us to go far. But without going through this entire slide, Rudy mentioned a whole heck of a lot of growth in this city. In the last 8 years, you've seen almost 130,000 electric customers and 36,000 gas customers. That's a lot. And that's necessitated a whole lot of investment into the city, and that growth is not slowing down. It is picking up. And there's also been a lot of changes in terms of technology. As Rudy mentioned, we have a lot of backbone technology that helps control our systems, our back offices, and those are aging. And add on top of that, 8 years ago, the cyber risk wasn't near what it is today. And there's additional investments around protecting our critical infrastructure, which is now more and more connected from an IT perspective. And so those are some of the major things that have changed between then and now that's kind of driving our request. And so on this next slide, as been mentioned previously, the base rate increase is 3.85%. And just for some context, the bill of any customers may have three components: a base rate, fuel, and regulatory adjustment. There are two out of those three we're going to talk about tonight. So this is the first component. It's the largest component of our bill, and that's about $73 million in revenue. In terms of implementation, we haven't mentioned this tonight yet. Our recommendation is not to begin implementing this until March 1 of 2022. So while the vote is anticipated by City Council next week, we wouldn't have implementation until March 1. What we did want to do is take in consideration the conversations we've had around equity, about utility burden from our customers, across our community. It's been a conversation point at the Rate Advisory Committee, and Peter, good to see you. We've had these conversations at the Rate Advisory Committee as well. So recognizing that this is a long-term conversation with the community, what we did in the short term was expand our affordability discount program, which is an income-based income need program, which provides currently a discount of $12.30 per month. What we're suggesting and recommending is that we propose an additional discount of $3.84 to basically offset the average impact that the base rate would cause for customers that are that are most in need in our community. And so that's a total of about $16.14 on an average electric and gas bill, and that's every month. The second thing we want is expand the size of the program. So we want to expand it by about 14,000 customers, which will grow the program to about 65,000 customers. And so we hope in the short term this buys us a little bit more time to help offset any initial burden by those who are already hit hard by the pandemic, and also increase our net by capturing more folks who may need some assistance. So in terms of what's included, how are we going to spend this incremental $73 million? Now, just for context, this $73 million is on top of a budget that we anticipate being about $2.9 billion. So while it's small relative to the size of our overall revenue, it's still significant in terms of what it provides. Probably most interesting to the audience is the investment in terms of infrastructure resiliency. We've got a little snowflake here. There's a lot of the improvements I mentioned earlier addressing our enhancements to critical infrastructure. There's continued spend in that area to continue to improve the systems that control our rolling outages, to improve our communication systems to our customers, and to continue to long-term upgrade our freeze protection controls at our power plants. And to the extent possible, look for alternative sources of fuel or generation. I mentioned technology earlier. Our aging technology and the increasing needs around cyber risk, and so we'll have about 15 million of that 73 of incremental dollars contributing to that. In terms of growth, dollars put in there. A lot of the stuff folks will see around the community involve replacement of poles, wires, and meters. Those are the things you see every day, and all other work that's related to growth. And then people. We hear Rudy talk a lot. He can't do his job without people. We have about 400 vacant positions currently. We're down to about 2,900 employees. 8 years ago, we had about 3,300. So with the growth that we've been seeing and the continued growth that we anticipate, we need to make an additional investment to start hiring up. And we have frozen hiring over the pandemic, and with all the retirements and folks taking different opportunities, we're at a disadvantage. So dollars for that. We also wanted to increase our minimum wage to $18 an hour, so that's a component built in there. And so those are the kind of the key drivers in terms of what's included in the $73 million. Now, we've talked about the winter storm from an infrastructure investment perspective. From a fuel perspective, we've seen the headlines. CPS Energy was charged about $1 billion in fuel. Now, we haven't paid $1 billion in fuel. What we have paid, as noted on the slide, is $418 million we have vetted as reasonable fuel costs. We had an independent third party come in, look at the storm, validate what a reasonable price around scarcity would look like, and ultimately, those are the dollars that we agreed to pay, both from a power perspective and a fuel perspective. Now, as Rudy said, we didn't want to pass all that through to our customers immediately. $418 million is about half the size of our annual fuel budget, and so that is something we wanted to recommend to City Council and to our board to spread that cost over time to our customers. So we haven't started recovering any of that money yet. We have paid for that with our short-term debt and cash that we have on hand, and we've been just holding on to that, waiting for the opportunity to come to council for permission to spread the cost over time, because we don't have a tool right now to do that. And so as Rudy alluded to, if you take our recommendation to spread this cost over 25 years, it's about $1.26 per month bill impact for customers, residential customers. Now, that's pretty modest compared to what you see across Texas and the surrounding states. The average bill impact for utilities impacted by the storm are closer to $12 per month. Companies trying to pass that through faster. I think we want to take a more modest approach with our community. So when you package together the base rate increase, which is one part of the bill, and the fuel cost, which is the second part of the bill. The combined bill impact, as was mentioned earlier, is $5.10. That adds together these two numbers here. And so, as I mentioned, for those that qualify for the affordability discount program, this very first line up here, base rate increase, is $3.84. This would be fully offset for customers who qualify for that program. For commercial customers who are interested, the average bill impact for them is slightly above what it is for residential customers. That's driven by the fact that they help support the affordability discount program for the residential customer group, and so their impact's a little bit larger. And then, of course, see the impact on our gas customers. These are commercial customers, it's a little bit higher. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up my comments here so we have enough time for questions. Just from a timeline perspective, we have already had our rate advisory committee vote in December, and they had approved or the recommendation for both the base rate increase and the regulatory asset associated with the winter storm fuel. And earlier this week, the Citizens Advisory Committee as well supported our recommendation. And so we'll be going to our Board of Trustees on Monday for their vote, and then we'll be at City Council on Thursday of next week. So I will pause there, Councilwoman, and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Cory. And I believe that one question came in already. And so, Rudy, if you can respond to that out loud so that the rest of the folks know. And the question was, I think the question was, is there a reimbursement coming from ERCOT?
Yes, ma'am. No, unfortunately, we did propose a series of different ways that the legislature could have addressed some of these costs, exorbitant costs that the market saw during that week, which was a declared disaster, mind you, declared by the governor, declared by the president of the United States, and they still allowed those costs to be passed on to customers. So there is no reimbursement from ERCOT. You know, we've been in litigation with ERCOT over some of the decisions that they made. Those cases remain, pending, and we've sued a number of gas providers that we believe charged, illegal and exorbitant prices during that time. So the court fights will continue. We're one of the few entities that continue to fight, these issues in court on behalf of our customers, because it's the right thing to do, and we'll continue to do that till the last case is addressed. But there's no relief coming from the state, unfortunately, on this issue.
Got it. Melody Herrera is asking a question, and then we'll take a question from Peter Onofre, who has his hand raised. And so I'm looking at the meteorologist to help with
we subscribe to a number of meteorologist services. I always have to give us the latest and greatest. We try to link a number of different services to try to get the best information. I am happy to report we're in the process of getting a meteorologist on staff. So we don't have a meteorologist on staff yet, but it is in the process of a hiring being made for meteorologists to join our team. So yes, ma'am, we are working on that.
Wonderful. Let's go to Peter Onofre, who has his hand raised. And Mr. Onofre, go right ahead, and then we'll take a question from Jessica Villanueva here in just a second. Go ahead, Mr. Onofre.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you for the appointment to the RAC. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve, and would like to thank Rudy and the leadership team for how open and responsive and professionally you worked with the RAC throughout this entire time. One of the areas, as was noted by Cory, of major concern was the impact on our most vulnerable, our energy burdened customers. And that was a concern of many on the RAC and also on the Municipal Utilities Committee. This impact was one of our priorities, as well as the financial integrity of CPS. But with the rate increase, with the adjustment that was made, I'm so grateful that the decision to scale back on the rate increase and to increase the ADP, that had, I think, a great benefit in offsetting that impact. And so I'm grateful for that. And I want to thank you also for providing the RAC with the Brattle Group analysis that showed how we increased the ADP and offset the rate increase to the most vulnerable. And Rudy, my question to you, as we continue to serve and going forward to the next steps, if you could share your experience with what influence the RAC had on the process, if any, and also going forward, how we could best serve to continue to represent our community and to advise you on the board.
Well, first, Peter, the RAC was established to provide the board with perspective. Both our rate advisory committee and our citizens advisory committee exist to do just that. They provide the board with perspective from the community. And the conversations at the rate advisory committee have been robust. Y'all have rolled up your sleeves. You got to work learning about our business. And while it certainly was a challenging process, you got to the point where you were given an opportunity to weigh in on this rate increase, and so that was the first step in a journey that y'all are going to be on to continue to provide us with longer term input. You're going to provide us input in the coming year on how different rate structures might work for CPS Energy and for the San Antonio customers to try to provide as much relief and assistance as we can for those who are most burdened in the community. I've learned a lot in those conversations that we've had from you, Peter, and from folks who are very passionate about these issues. And so I think it makes CPS Energy at the end of the day better as an organization, and certainly I know the board appreciates the work that you're putting in. You will also in the near future be allowed to weigh in on our generation planning process going forward. We're going to look at, there's been a dialogue about the spruce coal units. We know that we've got to make some decisions about the spruce coal units in the near future to make sure that we can put our board on the path to make some decisions on those issues over the next 12 months, as I have communicated and committed to council on in the various sessions that we've had with them. And so, Peter, there's ample work ahead for the rate advisory committee, and your perspective is very, very much appreciated and welcome. We're look forward to continue the dialogue.
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Onofre. So, Rudy, just to paraphrase, KABB was not able to hear your last two answers. So I just want to make sure that you mentioned that CPS is hiring a meteorologist to be on staff, and you continue to utilize a number of meteorology services to provide the most updated information about operations. So that is the question to the last answer to the last question. There was also a question that came in from Ms. Villanueva. Why can't we just get a fixed rate? So, Rudy, help answer that question. Why can't we just get a fixed rate?
Well, we could. I mean, that's an option. If the community wanted us to divide the fixed rate, everybody probably pay, I don't know, Cory, $110, $125 a month, depending upon how much energy you use. But there are challenges with that, especially with our lower income community. We have talked about, lowering the variable charge, moving some of those costs into the fixed cost, the $8.75 a month that everybody pays as part of their bill. That actually doesn't cover all of what we know are the fixed charges associated with the services we provide. So we're heavy on the the energy cost. We're light on the fixed cost. You could not have any energy cost and do all fixed cost. But there are just policy issues with why that might be a challenge now. I worked in the private sector in the competitive. I'll tell you what we do have. What we do have is an average billing rate or program. I'm on the average billing program I get the same fixed amount every month, and once a year it reconciles, it moves up or down based on the amount of usage that I have. But we do have that average billing program that allows you to kind of fix your rate based on your usage and amount you can budget to. There are different variations of that in the competitive market, but that's really our attempt to try to provide that type of service here. But, again, when we look at rate structure, which is something that the Rate Advisory Committee will get into in the near future, there are all kinds of ways you can structure rates. And if the community is interested in a fixed rate, we can come up with a fixed rate option if that's what you'd like to do. So certainly, I think anything is possible. But I would encourage you, call 210-353-2222. And our energy advisors can give you an estimate on what your average billing amount would be if you're interested in getting on that program. It's a great program. I love it.
Thank you, Rudy.
Adriana, Kendall Jones asked a question.
Yes.
Have winterization improvements extended out to those outside of the city limits? That's a great question. There have been a number of regulatory changes that did come out of the legislature this year that the PUC and ERCOT have been working on. This year, we were required to go through a series of ERCOT inspections on the work that we did at our power plants to weatherize for this winter season. I'm happy to say that CPS Energy fared very well in those inspections. We did great. They also inspected the generators outside of San Antonio across the entire state to make sure they've done what they're supposed to do. That's insight we have never had before. So I could always tell you, I know what CPS Energy has done. I don't know what the other generators across the state have done. Now, everybody's held to the same standard. That information is available. The ERCOT is validating that and reporting back to the Public Utility Commission. So the answer to your question is yes. We do have verification through the now what's a new inspection process that winterization improvements have been made throughout the ERCOT system.
Rudy, actually, Kendall had another question right before that. Kendall's asking, for the proposed rate increase, you mentioned technology. Will there be an improved notification or communication system for customers for future extreme weather events?
Well, I hope that you have started to receive the texts and the emails and the voicemails that we're sending out. Now we hit a button, we can get a message out pretty quickly to around 700,000 of our customers. And so we have already swapped our system for how we're connecting customers. So the answer to that question is yes, but to broaden the perspective, our computer system that runs everything, it runs how we pay vendors, it runs how we pay our employees, the system the Manage My Account system that you use to go in and look at your bills every month and to communicate with us, the call systems that we use, when you answer, when we answer the phone and when you call us, all of those systems are tied into our enterprise system, which is an SAP product. That system's 22 years old. We've got to replace it within the next 6 years because it's going to become obsolete. The vendors will not support it anymore. But as part of that investment, yes, we will be moving in a direction where the communication, the opportunities to communicate with our employees will become much more robust. We are really in a very patchwork system right now that we have got to bring up to the 21st century. But I've got to give my team credit. They have found a way to utilize the systems we do have access to today to be able to communicate. And you will see communication. We've already started using that system to communicate with customers, but we will utilize that system to let you know, hey, next week we expect temperatures to be in the 20s. Work on your emergency plans and be prepared in the event that we do see outages as a result of whatever the impact might be. So we do intend to use that system this winter.
Thank you, Rudy. A controversial question that has come up time and time again, and I'd like for you to address this. We had a comment that said, why not stop large bonuses to the CEO? Maybe we will save money. Help me address that question, not just for you, but for all of the executives at CPS.
Well, we have not given bonuses out in the last 2 years, so let me just put that notion to bed. We stopped bonus, any kind of incentive pay when the pandemic started because we knew that the community was hurting and we were trying to do our part. As part of this conversation with the city, we're going to do a wholesale look at our overall compensation plan. I will tell you, we have lost a lot of executives for a lot of reasons. We've lost a lot of employees across the board. We've lost employees to other utilities around us. CPS Energy has to remain competitive to ensure that we get the best and brightest to come to CPS Energy to work here. But the structure in which we compensate our employees, we're looking at that kind of wholesale. As when I was asked to take on this role, I will tell you that a bonus element of my compensation was not part of that, and so I was just trying to do what I thought was right for the community and for our employees to take on this role on an interim basis. We are legally obligated to pay out bonuses or incentive pay from 2019 that we've been holding on. That will happen, next year. But again, that's a legal obligation. The city, understands that we're required to do that. But that has nothing to do with this request. That's money that's been sitting there that, in an account that, that we've been holding on to while we're trying to get through this pandemic period. So our compensation system is changing. We got to reflect the compensation plan that reflects a publicly owned utility, and that's a space we're trying to get into that balances the need to be competitive in our energy market and the fact that we're a utility owned by our community.
Thank you, Rudy. Mr. Onofre, you have your hand up, and I want to be respectful. Do you have another question, or is that a mistake?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't bring my hand back down. I'm good.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to double check on that. And then also, how did CPS fare during this past week's freeze? That's a question that we have from a viewer by the name of Frank. Tell us about this past week's freeze, Rudy.
It was a non-event, we always have equipment-related, outages that happen, trees, we had a lot of wind, so there were some outages associated with trees. We had some cable failures here and there that happened just when, loads a little higher, but nothing associated with the winter storm. Our plants operated beautifully. We had ample generation and then some throughout the whole event. From a market pricing perspective, we saw no abnormal pricing in the market. We were long anyway, so we would have benefited, from the sale of power into the market had the prices gone up. But we actually had power plants that we never had to operate because we had plenty of power. So first freeze of the season, so far so good, and we expect that performance to continue as we move in to the colder winter months.
Wonderful, Rudy. There's another question, and it's sort of repeated, but phrased a little bit different. And so, why are residents putting the bill for Winter Storm Uri and not the federal government? So, one more question.
Well, the federal government we're not a funding entity of the federal government. The federal government doesn't provide funding for utilities. We were gracious enough to get some funding from the city through the ARPA funding that they allocated out to help customers who've gotten behind on their bills. Councilwoman, we thank you very much for the $20 million in utility assistance that you provided. I just recently signed that agreement with the city so that we can get that money programmed out to our constituents. We'll be able to actually help close to 20,000 customers through that money, but there just is no federal funding that's out there that can help us with these costs. Unfortunately, as any utility, the only place we have to go when we need revenue is our customers. And so again, we try to pinch every penny and save through our operation to try to offset that need. But again, when we do have a need and we do have a need now, the only place we have to go for revenue is our customers. And so that's why this process is so rigid and thoughtful, and we spend time. Again, my intention is never to try to convince somebody that that raising rates is a good thing. I know it's a difficult ask, but it's our job to educate you on how it's going to benefit you as a customer, and that's what we're here trying to do today.
Perfect. Thank you, Rudy. And you kind of mentioned this already, but can you help the viewers again, maybe who just tuned in, understand how you're preparing for the next big freeze or something like Uri?
Well, so as Cory mentioned, we have completely reprogrammed our wires, system that manages what we call controlled outages. When demand is, outpaces supply in the ERCOT system, they do what they call load shed to bring the supply and demand into balance so that we don't lose the grid completely, which is a multi-week, maybe up to a month process to get the grid back. And that would be catastrophic. It's never happened in the state of Texas. And we were about 4 minutes and, 50-something seconds away from that happening, during that last winter freeze. And so the system, we've reprogrammed that system to be able to handle what was 5 times more than anything we'd ever seen before. Now, if we ever get into the situation where we have to shed load at ERCOT's request, we can handle not only the 20,000 megawatts across the state that they were asking utilities to shed in February, we can actually handle up to 25,000 megawatts. I hope, it was something I've never seen in my career, and I've been in this business, for 25 years, but if it happens again, we're going to be in a much better position to ensure that it's 15 minutes off and then at least 15 minutes or some more, larger amount of time on, and that it's a lot more equitably distributed across the community. We've really put a number of circuits back in to the load shed system. We've really limited the critical customers to hospitals and just a few things that we absolutely have to keep on. So there are customers who were not out this last event that will be out next time, because we're trying to spread, that burden out across the community to the extent possible. So everybody is able to get some power and keep their homes warm and protect themselves. So we've spent the last 10 months of our focus has been on doing the things we need to do better next time.
Thank you, Rudy. Another question came in from Kendall, and he said, or Kendall says, I would be all right with a rate increase if it ensures that the energy that the customer pays for is not on loan or charged to northern states. Can we sever ties with ERCOT?
Well, severing ties with ERCOT is really not an option for us. ERCOT exists to ensure that, all parts of the state, buy and sell power based on, the amount that they're generating, what their load looks like. So some days, we have excess power. We sell that onto the ERCOT grid. We get money back, which is less money we have to ask of our customers. Sometimes our plants are down for maintenance and we have to import power, to ensure that we keep the lights on in San Antonio. So, the state of Texas really does work together, to ensure that we keep the lights on. So it's not really feasible to sever ties with ERCOT, but I will concede your point. There are some policy changes that have to be made at the state level to ensure our customers are protected. And those are 5 CPS Energy took on this last legislative session. Our legislators did a great job. All of our legislators, from San Antonio, fought the good fight up in Austin, and we'll continue to fight that fight to make sure that our customers are protected. But we still got some work to do at the state legislature on this, but being a part of ERCOT is a good thing for San Antonio.
Thank you so much, Rudy. One final question, and the question is, has a policy been implemented to monitor executive spending?
Yeah, so we've got, every year we go through multiple audits of all parts of our business. And, while the story that you saw on one of our executives certainly did not reflect the expectations of an executive in a publicly owned utility, our board has asked us to take a look at all of our policies. Fred didn't technically break any policies, but certainly the perception, and the optics of how he was utilizing resources was not good. I can tell you that is not a cultural issue at CPS Energy. Our executives, by and large, are great stewards of our community's utility dollars. I certainly come in and set expectations on what I expect out of my leadership team. I don't use my company card, quite frankly. We use it when we have to travel, for a business trip or something that we absolutely have to take. But by and large, we don't spend a lot of dollars. Cory, we crank down the limits on our travel and our expenditures during, when the pandemic came around, and we've really continued, those trends going into, this coming year. So our board has asked us to look at all of our policies, our guidelines. We're doing that. We will report back to the board. But I can reassure the community that those are not systematic issues at CPS Energy, in spite of the media reporting on it. Our employees, understand what it means to be a publicly owned utility and are focused on being as efficient, and as respectful with the dollars that come into CPS Energy. We exist to serve you. That is our only, purpose in being in existence, and we're going to stay focused on that mission.
Thank you, Rudy, for taking the hard questions. And we know that there's a lot of hard questions. We probably will continue receiving questions as we send out surveys. Some people would like to send in their questions by telephone or call in and let us know, and then we'll pass them on to you without being identified, etc. So thank you to you and Cory and the entire CPS Energy team for today's discussion. We are going to open up in about 5 minutes to the Spanish-speaking household. So we're doing this exact same thing again with Spanish speakers. So feel free, if you're bilingual, to stay on. If there's other questions that you have, or you want to listen to this in Spanish. But one other question, just to clarify: can someone call CPS to enroll in the fixed rate program?
Yeah. It's called our average billing program, the Councilwoman, and all they have to do is call that number 210-353-2222, ask about our average billing program, and our energy advisors can help anybody interested in getting on that plan.
Thank you. And then Rudy, is that the same thing as a budget? There used to be a budget program.
Okay, it's the same thing. It's our budget payment plan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Because I was enrolled in that, and actually now I'm not. So I have to reach out to you all to re-enroll in the budget payment fund. You just reminded me of that. So thank you, Kendall, for that question, by the way. Thank you, Rudy, for the answer. Again, thank you all. I want our residents to know that you can still, like I said, share your questions, your concerns, your comments, your opinions with us via phone or email or on social media. And so again, the email address for your State Council District 4 is council.district4@sanantonio.gov. Our phone number is 210-207-0880, and they will post it here for you on the chat box so that you can copy and paste it. We also have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That handle is at Dr. Dr. Adriana, ADRIANAD4. And we just want to make sure that we invite you all to the Utility Assistance Fair. Again, reminder, it's Saturday morning at Palo Alto College. We'll have all the precautions necessary to make sure that people are spaced out. We know that Omicron is in our area, but it's going to be from 9:30 to 12:30 at Palo Alto College, January the 8th. Please tell your friends who need assistance. They can be helped with a utility assistance application. They can learn more about discount programs. Everything that CPS Energy has that's available to our residents will be available there in English and in Spanish. But thank you for joining us this evening. We hope we hear more of you. We want to hear your feedback. We will be sharing that questionnaire and encouraging you to submit your questions to our office as soon as possible. And now we're going to do a test run of Spanish. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We will turn over now to the Spanish session. And thank you, Rudy, for joining us, and Cory and team.
Thank you, Councilwoman.